The story begins. Lu Nuyen hates me for having too much water and forcing her to marry me when she was at her weakest. She both scolded me for being a despicable and shameless person, while also enjoying my sacrifice like a loyal dog. However, on the day she found a new love and said goodbye, I got into a car accident. From then on, everything changed. There is no longer a licking dog, because that dog died in an accident, leaving only a rabid dog that bit someone. I am a personality in Kai Ba Truong's body. My name is Kai Ba Dat. I always appear when Kai Ba Truong is most miserable. The first time I opened my eyes in his body was when he was 8 years old. He was kidnapped and stuffed in a cramped, stuffy trunk. That night, the kidnapper sneered and said, "If there's no ransom money tomorrow, I'll turn it into hot pot." It was then that I woke up in his body. Unlike the shy and weak Kai Ba Truong, I am calm, strong, and cruel. I smiled softly and said to him, "What are you afraid of?" "I'm here." He sobbed and asked in panic in his mind, Who is talking?" I replied slowly, "It's me. I'm in your body. You can call me Kai Ba Dat." From then on every day, waiting to redeem his life, he talked to me. "Ba Dat, are you my split personality? Are you a figment of my imagination? Do you really exist? Thank you for being here with me. With you by my side, I'm no longer afraid." After that, I taught him how to sharpen the wire. Taking advantage of the kidnapper's loophole, he put his hand out of the trunk of the car, leaving a mark, leading to the police finding him. He was saved, but I should have disappeared. But on the day he returned home, I discovered that no one welcomed him. His father was busy with thousands of things and didn't even know his son had been kidnapped for a week. His stepmother was in tears, crying, "It's good that you're back safely." But then she turned around and coldly said, "It's so useless. The kidnappers won't kill him soon." His stepbrother laughed and patted his shoulder, but his hand clenched into a fist, hitting him hard with enough force to make him grit his teeth in pain. Kai Ba Truong trembled and kept pleading in his mind, "Ba Dat, don't go. Can you stay with me? I'm scared. I'm really scared." So I stayed. From then on, he and I shared one body. When it's safe and happy, he's the one in control. When it's dangerous or in crisis, I'm the ruler. He is a well-behaved child, but I am not. I bluntly responded to his stepmother every time she said sarcastic words. I held the dagger and stuck it into the wooden door right next to my temple. The stepbrother threatened in a low voice, "Next time if you dare touch me, the knife will stick straight into your eye." I grabbed the leader of the bully, Kai Ba Truong, at school, pushed his head into the toilet tank, forced him to almost drown before letting go, and coldly laughed and said, "If you dare to touch your grandfather, next time I will drown you." And at that time, Kai Ba Truong always trembled and said to me, "Ba Dat, I'm lucky to have you. Can we be together forever?" I have read books and know that people with multiple personalities in one body find every way to destroy each other, to usurp absolute control. But Kai Ba Truong and I are not like that. We rely on each other and exist together like siblings. At that time, I looked in the mirror, looked at the face we shared and promised him, "Okay, we will be together forever." The face in the mirror beamed with a smile. Kai Ba Truong's smile is like a cool stream flowing through the world, clear, peaceful, clean. At that time, I thought I would protect this smile forever. This is the reason I was born and my only mission. He only had me, but very soon, our abnormality was discovered. No matter how careful one is, it is difficult to hide a person with two opposite temperaments and personalities. Once upon a time, Kai Ba Truong's stepmother told his father that she often saw him muttering to himself. His stepbrother accused his father that he was holding a knife to kill him. The teachers also came to his father, saying that some classmates reported that Kai Ba Truong was sometimes gentle and friendly, and other times cold and cruel, like a completely different person. Kai Ba Truong's father is a proud man and cannot accept this. He slapped him hard in the face, making the corner of his mouth bleed, then angrily shouted, "Why do I have a crazy child like you?" After that, Kai Ba Truong and I were taken to a private psychiatric hospital. Before the door of the hospital room closed, his stepmother leaned against the door and smiled proudly. "I carefully chose this place, Ba Truong. Don't be afraid. As long as you're cured, you can go home." The hospital's treatment method is to use electric stimulation equipment to cause convulsions. I was trapped in his body, unable to get out, I could only watch helplessly as they applied electricity to him. We tried to pretend that I had disappeared, but each time we were discovered. They forced him to look in the mirror after each electric shock to the point of foaming at the mouth, asking him what his name was. They starved him for 2 days and 2 nights. On the 3rd day, they brought a fragrant chicken leg and soft drink in front of them, enticing. If you just remove that personality, we will let you eat. They didn't let him sleep, changing the room temperature from blazing hot to bone-chilling cold. They weren't treating him, they were just torturing him. I told Kai Ba Truong, forget it, cooperate with treatment, just erase me. But he didn't know where he got the strength. He, a cowardly man full of wounds, could only curl up in the corner of the room, holding himself up with both arms, as if doing so would make him no longer cold or afraid. He clenched his teeth until he bled. The boy who used to cry every night out of fear when he was kidnapped in the past, now gritted his teeth and endured it, not shedding a single tear. He said, I will not abandon you. Kai Ba Dad, I will not let you disappear. We promised to never be apart. This time it's my turn to protect you. That night, when he was almost electrocuted to death, I hypnotized myself into disappearing. Before disappearing, I told him, I'm only leaving temporarily. Ba Truong, don't be afraid, be strong and move on. I'm still watching over you. If one day you can't stand it anymore, believe that I will come back to you. He thought I was tricking him. He screamed and threatened, if you leave, don't ever come back. After speaking, he choked up and begged Kai Ba Dad, don't go. I beg you. I can really bear it. It didn't hurt me at all, seeing him in desperate pain, crying until he couldn't breathe. My heart also ached, but in the end, I still closed my eyes, unwilling to sink into darkness. 14 years later, on the day he suffered the most, I opened my eyes in his body again. This time, I no longer understand why there is such a deep pain, like an endless ocean merging into the night, with no shore, no escape, no horizon to be seen. There were only giant waves rolling in, wave after wave coming, as if wanting to engulf everything. His heart sank deep to the bottom of the sea, aching, suffocating, but I heard his laughter. At the age of 25, he sat upright in a luxurious living room, illuminated by a magnificent chandelier, making him look even more radiant. He has grown up, is taller than before, has a straight figure, handsome facial features, and an incredibly bright smile. In front of him was a beautiful woman, covered in precious jewelry. But her eyes were filled with disgust when looking at him. She rolled her eyes and smiled faintly. What are you pretending to do? Looking at you just makes me nauseous. Go away. Her voice was cold and bitter. Kai Ba Truong frowned slightly, but the smile on his face did not decrease even a little bit. Every curve at the corner of the lips fits perfectly. He smiled faintly. I'm really sorry, Lu Nuyen. His voice was calm, not hot, not cold, as if he was telling an obvious truth. Every word he emphasized, no matter how disgusting she felt, she had to look at this face for the rest of her life. Lu Nuyen left a long time later, with that smile still on his face, until I sighed into his body. Ba Truong, stop laughing. He was stunned. The smile on his lips gradually froze. I don't know how much time passed, but he continued to laugh. But this time I could see the bitterness deep in his eyes. He laughed softly like a sigh, as if the 14 years of separation had never existed. He called me, Kai Ba Dad. I replied, I am. Ba Truong, at the age of 25, is no longer the Ba Truong in my memory. Before, he was shy, scared, and often bullied. Now he still smiles, but his smile is like a mask. Every emotion is perfectly controlled. Every gesture seems calm and competent. He told me what happened over the past 14 years. He said, in a family as complicated as mine, he learned many ways to protect himself. He learned how to laugh without smiling, using it to achieve his goals. For example, when he was 18 years old, when his stepmother was pregnant, she messed with his car, almost causing him to die in an accident. As a result, on the lavish spiral staircase in the house, he quietly applied a thin layer of olive oil. Then he stood at the top step, coldly lowering his eyes to watch the woman slip and roll from one floor to another. He recounted in a calm and terrifying tone, Kai Ba Dad, you can't see it. The blood under her body looks extremely beautiful. For example, When he was 19 years old, he hired someone to steal his stepbrother's money-loving girlfriend. Then, right in the living room, he watched his stepbrother drink wine to relieve his heartbreak and then mocked him mercilessly. Sure enough, he was so excited that he got angry, grabbed the rope that appeared from nowhere on the table, and tightened it around his neck. At that moment, his father, a busy man who was never home, happened to return and witness everything. Anger flared up. He only saw him coughing and choking until his face turned red from lack of oxygen, but no one saw him after turning away. The corner of his lips curled up in a cold smile. He continued, "After that, that scum was chased away. From then on, it was no longer allowed to appear in front of me." He smiled. "Kai Ba Dad, you're still too soft-hearted. This must be done to completely stop it, right?" For example, when he was 21 years old, he brought his beautiful adopted sister home, but had no intention, just wanted to find a way to get promoted. And coincidentally, his father was present at that moment. From that day on, his stepmother completely fell out of favor. His adopted sister happily told him, "Ba Truong, your father said he would divorce you and marry me. Don't worry, I will listen to you." Yes, she is very obedient. At least enough to ensure that after graduation, he will smoothly take over the company, gradually controlling the family's assets. He talked a lot, but I just listened quietly. Gradually, because I didn't respond, his voice faded, eventually becoming emotionless. He asked me, "Kai Ba Dad, do you, like Lu Nuyen, think I am a coward and despicable person?" He sat quietly in front of the ground-level window, looking blankly into the distance. "Kai Ba Dad, do you even find me scary?" I sighed, my voice calm. "Ba Truong, for so many years, you must have suffered a lot by yourself. I don't like to say emotional words, but I can't control the pain in my heart." I smiled lightly. "I'm very happy, Ba Truong, really. I'm very happy that you know how to protect yourself." He was stunned, but soon my voice became cold. "So now, tell me who made you suffer?" "That's right, Ba Truong. At 25 years old, he has grown up in a way that makes me both heartbroken and proud. But I don't forget, every time I appeared it meant he was in extreme pain, in such despair that he couldn't hold on any longer. I think of the woman named Lu Nuyen, of the expression of disgust when she looked at Ba Truong and the harsh words, 'I feel disgusted when I see you. Go and die.' I couldn't help but laugh coldly and asked him, 'Do you like her?' Only when you like someone can you give them the right to hurt you." At 25 years old, he had already trained himself to have a heart as strong as Ba Truong's, but was also caught in a love trap. In front of me, he doesn't need to disguise himself. I saw him gradually let down his guard, his face revealing little by little confusion and heartache, with a bit of childish innocence, as if he couldn't understand. He asked me, "Kai Ba Dad, I'm so good to her, giving everything for her. Why doesn't she like me?" Lu Nuyen is his fiancée. 3 years ago, the marriage was called off as a commercial marriage. 3 years ago, her father, Lu Fook, suddenly passed away in a car accident. She, the only daughter of the Lu family, was still studying abroad at that time, and was forced to return to handle the matter and take over the Lu T group. At that time, Ba Truong began attending board meetings on behalf of his father. Before he joined that meeting, his father said, "We have to swallow this fat piece of meat from Lu. I have been keeping an eye on their finances and supply chain for a long time. If it wasn't for Lu Fook's accident, I wouldn't want to touch it in my life. I heard that the person taking over is his daughter, just a little girl. How much can you understand? Sooner or later, they will be swallowed up. Uncle Truong, you can go explore for me and check out the other person's inside story." So Kai Ba Truong left and met Lu Nuyen. He said, "Kai Ba Dad, you must find it strange why I love Lu Nuyen, right?" He paused for a moment, then slowly said, "The first time I met Lu Nuyen was actually when I was 16 years old. After he disappeared, I was tortured for a period of time before being brought back. At that time, I was cowardly, weak, and bullied in all sorts of ways and didn't know how to fight back. I could only repeat his name over and over in my heart, grit my teeth and endure it, comforting myself that it would pass after a little patience. Until I was locked in the tool room, pitch black, because he had memories of being kidnapped as a child. He had a fear of confined spaces. He screamed wildly, banged on the door with his hands until it was red and swollen, but no one heard him, and no one came to save him. Even I was no longer with him, until a voice rang out in the darkness. That voice sounded as clear as heaven's voice, gently soothing his out-of-control soul. She jokingly said, "Classmate, why will you cry so much when you get married? Okay, wife, calm down here. I'll call the police to help you." The door opened. He saw a young girl standing against the light, like a goddess descending from the sky, pulling him out of the swamp of despair. This memory seemed to be one of the very few warm recollections he had. A fragile smile appeared at the corner of his lips, and his eyes revealed a vague trace of nostalgia. He said to me, "Kai Ba Dad, do you know? That small, narrow trunk was always the abyss of my nightmares." However, when Lu Nuyen opened the door, reached out to me, and said, "I'm here," at that moment, I felt like she went through 8 years of time, saving my 8-year-old child from the trunk of that car. From then on, he kept looking for her, but when he finally looked up her name, she had already left the country. Many years later, at that board meeting, Kai Ba Truong stood outside the meeting room and saw her sitting inside, her chin in her hand, quietly stunned. That familiar appearance stunned him. It wasn't until she raised her head that her eyes met his, her eyebrows as drawn, her almond eyes shining. She smiled, reached out to him, and said gently, "You must be Kai Ba Truong, right? I'm Lu Nuyen. Nice to meet you." She didn't remember him at all, didn't remember that night 9 years ago, once helping her through the large ground-level window. Outside are towering buildings rising like a forest. After the rain, each layer of glass reflects bright, dazzling light. Kai Ba Truong stood still, his eyes intently looking at her. Then, he smiled, and in that smile there was emotion and nostalgia. He said, "Hello, Lu Nuyen. I am Kai Ba Truong." In his heart he thought, "I have been looking for her for a long, long time, and waited for her for a long, long time." This was a sentence he had never uttered, and Lu Nuyen would never have the chance to hear it. I asked, "Your relationship doesn't seem to be very harmonious." Kai Ba Truong sighed and said, "I used the wrong method. Kai Ba Dad, from childhood to adulthood, my environment taught me how to hate someone. No one has ever taught me how to be good to others, except for you. No one has ever been good to me. So I didn't understand. So from the beginning I proposed a deal with Lu Nuyen. That's what she's best at." That council meeting made him realize that Lu Nuyen was being besieged on all sides. Senior leaders only care about their own interests, shareholders want to divide the Lu family's property, and distant relatives also want to share. But it seems that Lu Nuyen is not that weak. During that chaotic council meeting, she pursed her lips without saying a word. When the shareholders quarreled loudly because of imbalanced interests, she seemed to accidentally push the glass cup next to her hand to the ground. The crisp sound echoed, much more shrill than amidst the noisy arguments. The whole room suddenly became quiet and still. Everyone looked at her with sympathetic eyes. Lu Nuyen, 23 years old, frowned slightly. She raised her head, neither arrogant nor bowed, and said coldly, "Continue to argue. Why don't you argue anymore? I thought you guys didn't feel embarrassed." Everyone was silent. Only Kai Ba Truong sat opposite her. When her eyes looked towards him, she smiled at him. Afterwards, when the meeting room was quiet, Kai Ba Truong remained. He poured a new glass of water and placed it next to Lu Nuyen's hand. When Lu Nuyen suppressed his gaze, he smiled, like a transaction. "Lu Nuyen, let's discuss business. Commercial marriage." Kai Ba Truong said, "Let's get married. The chair you are sitting on is not stable. Let me help you hold it firmly." It was a tempting offer, but after suppressing her emotions, Lu Nuyen refused. She coldly snorted, "Mr. Kai, I have no intention of making my marriage a transaction. If I get married in the future, I hope the person I marry is someone I love, not for convenience." This refusal did not make Kai Ba Truong angry. On the contrary, it made him like the person in front of him even more. Since then, Kai Ba Truong appeared many times next to Lu Nuyen. Each time it was at the most difficult time. Each time she was coldly rejected by Lu Nuyen. Until the last time, at which time banks simultaneously put pressure on Lu T Group. The group's finances fell into a deadlock. It rained heavily. After the negotiation with the bank, Lu Nuyen went out without an umbrella, just standing in the rain. Kai Ba Truong placed the umbrella over her head and sighed softly from behind. Lu Nuyen, my proposal is still valid. Lu Nuyen didn't say anything, just quietly looked up at him from under the umbrella. Kai Ba Chuang added another sentence. Today you refuse me. Tomorrow my father will launch a plan to acquire Lu T Group. Why? Lu Nuyen stared at Kai Ba Chuang and asked suspiciously. Why me? Kai Ba Chuang tilted his eyes. Because you need me. She needs me to support her. As for me, she also knows my situation. My young stepmother was looking at me like a tiger stalking its prey. My half-brother was exiled abroad. My father is still able to have children. Her Lu family is in trouble during the storm. If I marry you, the risks are minimal, the benefits are greatest. We are the perfect couple, right? Lu Nuyen believes that. Then they got engaged. Kai Ba Chuang thought that if he said he liked Lu Nuyen would not believe him, and would even think that he had other plans. Only if this was a pure exchange would Lu Nuyen accept him. You can only capture that person first, then make that person love you. Kai Ba Chuang once said to Kai Ba Dad, I'm very stupid, right? Forcing her to agree to marry me, wanting her to like me, but not wanting her to appreciate me. So she will never know what I did for her. What did he do for Lu Nuyen? For example, under great pressure to persuade his father to abandon his plan to destroy Lu T Group. For example, despite the huge risks, before his father's probing eyes, he presented a series of benefits of marriage. For example, during his father's tests, he just calmly replied, How can you like her? Just a family with internal divisions and a powerful corporation. Isn't it obvious which is more beneficial for us? Dad, for example, was engaged to Lu Nuyen. After their engagement news was announced, Lu T Group received a guarantee from the Kai family. Banks finally stopped pressuring Lu Nuyen. From a young age, Lu Nuyen was held in the palm of her parents' hands and grew up to be a wealthy young lady. In her eyes, her engagement with Kai Ba Chuang was just an inconvenience and a humiliation because she was forced. That made her extremely miserable. Therefore, she always kept a distance from Kai Ba Chuang and was never close. However, there are times when they get along. They have so many common topics and common interests. Used to mock the old foxes on the board together. When Kai Ba Chuang has a stomach ache, Lu Nuyen will cook porridge and stew for him. When it's cold, she will also remind him to wear more clothes. They used to eat together, go on dates, and enjoy dances and dramas like other normal unmarried couples. But there is always a layer of vague distance between them, not the intimacy of lovers, but as if completing a mission. Until one day, Kai Ba Chuang said, the first year after we got engaged, I went to Lu T Group to find her. At that time, she was negotiating cooperation with Bitch Van Dao of Bitch T Group. He did not expect that after the negotiation ended, the two of them would look at each other and smile in agreement. He saw with his own eyes that Bitch Van Dao happily hugged Lu Nuyen. Even though it was only for a moment, and then let go immediately, Lu Nuyen blushed and looked at him with passionate eyes. They have been engaged for a year. She is his fiancée. Usually she doesn't even let him hold her hand, nor does she let him spend money. Yet she let another man hug her, even revealing that adorable shy look. So, Kai Ba Chuang walked in. He stared at the man smiling at Lu Nuyen. After that, he calmly said, I don't like Bitch Van Dao. Let's end the cooperation. At that time, Lu Nuyen's revolving capital was based on Kai T Group. She couldn't refuse Kai Ba Chuang. She asked why he had to stop cooperating. Kai Ba Chuang calmly replied, It's not pleasing to the eye. It's just not pleasing to the eye. Why ask so many questions? Lu Nuyen said nothing. Only Bitch Van Dao beside her smiled wryly. Perhaps you also feel awkward, so you proactively offer to give up cooperation. Lu Nuyen's eyes left Bitch Van Dao, quietly looked at Kai Ba Chuang for a long time, then smiled faintly and sarcastically. From then on, the distance between them became increasingly distant. The next time Kai Ba Chuang felt pain was when he assassinated a writer. That writer clearly knew that Lu Nuyen was his fiancée, yet he still blatantly wrote love poems and confessed his love to her on social networks. That writer came to Lu Nuyen to ask for her help, hoping that Kai Thu Du would be normal. Lu Nuyen wouldn't care about such things, but this time she got angry. She questioned him. Is it necessary to be so cruel? She mocked Kai Ba Chuang. You are so despicable and shameless. Kai Ba Chuang looked at her through the reflection of the glass. He smiled, but that smile was even more unsightly than crying. His voice was sincere but full of doubt. Kai Ba Dat, I have never used any tricks on her. I'm just defending myself, is that wrong? If someone wants to steal my girlfriend, what's wrong with me preventing it in advance? He asked sadly. Why did she say that to me? Am I wrong? You're not wrong. Of course you're not wrong. If anyone says you're wrong, says you're cruel, it's them who's wrong, not you. I hate Lu Nuyen, I don't hide it. In front of Kai Ba Truong, I was like an ancient deity, little by little, bewitching him. Ba Truong left her, but he just smiled. His eyes were full of emptiness and worry, sighed and said, But Kai Ba Dat, I've liked her for so many years, how can I let go? I didn't say any more until we found out that Lu Nuyen seemed to like someone. That day was Ba Truong's birthday. No matter how coldly Lu Nuyen treated him, they were still technically an unmarried couple. Kai Group and Lu Group, after 3 years of cooperation, interests are closely intertwined. It doesn't take a few arguments to break it off. Ba Truong called Lu Nuyen. His voice was calm, as if the fierce argument a few days ago had never existed. He said, Nuyen, are you free tonight? Come have dinner with me. Lu Nuyen replied, Yes, this is the upper class. Even though both sides understand clearly in their hearts, they will still keep each other's face and not reveal any emotions. In the evening, in a luxurious private restaurant, Lu Nuyen also gave gifts to Ba Truong. Although Ba Truong's smile was no different from usual, I knew he was very happy, sincerely happy. Even though it's just a cheap tie compared to the gemstone jewelry he once gave her, it's worth nothing. It's really not worth it. Even so, Kai Ba Truong still said thank you to Lu Nuyen. Thank you. I like it very much. The meal ended, leaving only idle conversation, nothing worth mentioning, until even I realized something was wrong with Lu Nuyen. She lost focus. This seems trivial at first glance, but for both her and Kai Ba Truong, who live in such an environment, inattention means danger. In this world, coffee is a must-have. There are too many people around, too many eyes always watching. You must maintain yourself like a non-stop machine, not allowing even the slightest mistake. But Lu Nuyen was disappointed. Kai Ba Truong asked a question. It took her 2 times to regain her composure. Then, she calmly and politely apologized. Sorry, I didn't hear clearly. Can you say that again? Kai Ba Truong did not show his emotions, just seriously repeated. Next Sunday, my father wants us to go to the birthday party of the bank director's youngest daughter. Are you going? Lu Nuyen was stunned, silent for a long time, then replied, Sorry, I'm busy next week. Kai Ba Truong hummed softly, holding up his coffee cup to hide his expression. When he put down the glass, his face regained a gentle smile, changed the subject, and seemed like he didn't care. After dinner, when we sat in the car, Kai Ba Truong was silent for a long time and then said to me, Kai Ba Dat, she has something to say. I nodded calmly and replied, Call Detective 2. Let them monitor Lu Nuyen. Detective 2 is red, but works very quickly. Soon, Kai Ba Truong and I knew the reason why Lu Nuyen lost concentration. Wai Dang Tan, reporter for Tai Kim Daily, 2 months ago Lu Nuyen accepted an interview with this newspaper. It was Wai Dang Tan who interviewed her. Kai Ba Truong and I flipped through the photos in our hands. Lu Nuyen, who always exuded nobility and elegance, was now wearing a simple white dress, looking so pure and touching. She and Wai Dang Tan walked together on the tree-lined path, looking like a beautiful couple, as if they came out of a fairy tale. They also held a glass of milk tea in their hands. Kai Ba Truong's finger touched the photo, stopped on Lu Nuyen's face, and finally gently touched the corner of her slightly curled lips. His voice was low, as if going back many years. He asked me, Kai Ba Dat, tell me, does Lu Nuyen really like him? I smiled coldly. Try it and you'll know right away. I found Lu Nuyen. She didn't realize there was any difference between me and Kai Ba Truong. Sitting across from her, I smiled faintly. Nuyen, last week my friend saw you going to the movies with a man. Ours is a commercial marriage, but I still hope we can both stay loyal, at least not let our acquaintances lose face. Lu Nuyen was stunned. She replied calmly. Her tone was light, without any expression, as if it was nothing big. Nothing, just a trick to create a scandal. I smiled without saying anything. A few days later, another photo appeared in the newspaper. Lu Nuyen got into another rider's car. Kai Ba Truong and I looked at the photo in the newspaper and laughed coldly. I told him, "It seems like true love. Even the Tiger Lie Sundance in the business world is used just to distract." Kai Ba Truong didn't say anything. He put down the newspaper and took the photo that Detective 2 had just sent. Under the blooming wisteria tree in the park, Wai Dang Tan bowed his head and gently kissed Lu Nuyen's forehead. Even though it's just a photo, you can still feel the pure and sacred love between them. A pure love, not mixed with anything else. Kai Ba Truong has been engaged to Lu Nuyen for 3 years, but even in front of the media, she has never let him kiss her. I looked at Kai Ba Truong. He just quietly stared at the photo, expressionless. I advised him, "Ba Truong, just leave, just leave. Because a woman like this is not worth it." If it were me, I would use this photo to negotiate for Lu Ti's shares, then annul the marriage and kick her away. But it's because I don't have feelings for her that I can be so rational and pragmatic. And Kai Ba Truong, he loves her. He gritted his teeth and said, "No one can betray me, Kai Ba Dat. I will make them pay. Even if she doesn't love me, it's okay. Kai Ba Dat, I have thought clearly. I just need her as a person. Even if she doesn't love me, she will have to be tied to me for the rest of her life. Unless one day I don't need her anymore." Lu Nuyen said Ba Truong was a despicable person. Ba Truong just smiled an unpredictable smile on the corner of his lips. He said, "Then let me be mean once to show her." The next day, Kai Ba Truong returned to his familiar appearance. Still courteous, dressed neatly, every word and gesture is dignified, without a trace of loss of control. He called Lu Nuyen. His tone was calm. There was an interview with the editorial office. People with money sometimes have to play the role of a loving couple in front of the public to stabilize stock prices, reassure shareholders, and maintain the cooperative relationship between the two families. That day, when Lu Nuyen received the phone call, she was silent for a long time and finally hesitantly said, "Kai Ba Truong, I have something to tell you. What else can happen? I probably want to annul the marriage. Now that Lu Ti Group no longer gives away islands like before, the situation is better." She immediately goes looking for true love. I looked at the smile on Kai Ba Truong's lips. The angrier I got, the more I lost control. He smiled even more gently. That superficial smile hid bottomless calculations, an appearance so strange that I didn't even recognize him. Interrupting Lu Nuyen's words, she coldly said, "If there's anything wrong, wait until the interview is over before talking." Lu Nuyen paused for a moment, then agreed. The newspaper editorial office prepared very professionally. Kai Ba Truong sat next to Lu Nuyen, smiling. They are perfect matches, a match made in heaven, and their looks match perfectly. Some people wonder, how can there be such a compatible couple? Kai Ba Truong hugged Lu Nuyen's shoulder and told their story with a love that seemed real and fake. He looked at her gently, talked about their engagement, and talked about the dependence, concern, and care that Lu Nuyen gave him. He talked a lot, to the point that perhaps even he believed that Lu Nuyen really loved him as he said. Perhaps to save face for Kai Ba Truong. Throughout the interview, Lu Nuyen did not refute a single sentence. Until the end of the session, when Kai Ba Truong and I glanced through the bustling crowd, we saw Wai Dang Tan, his expression gloomy. Before arranging this interview, Kai Ba Truong specially called the editor-in-chief, emphasizing, "I heard that you have a reporter named Wai Dang Tan. When interviewing, remember to have him present." At this moment, Kai Ba Truong really laughed. He asked me, "Kai Ba Dat, tell me, when Lu Nuyen realized everything, did she scold me for being despicable?" I don't answer. He raised his head and looked up at the sky, calmly saying, "If she wants to scold her, just scold her. Now what she thinks of me, it doesn't matter anymore." But actually, Lu Nuyen was not angry at all. She stood in front of Kai Ba Truong, her tone calm. "You deliberately arranged this interview, proving that you already know about Atan, right? Then let's cancel the marriage." Kai Ba Truong looked at her, expressionless, slowly said, "What if I don't agree?" Lu Nuyen asked confusedly, "Why don't you agree? I can make concessions in the matter of shares." Kai Ba Truong replied, "Our engagement was originally just a cooperation deal, right?" Kai Ba Truong was stunned. Little by little, his face turned pale. He muttered, Did you consider this engagement as a business from the beginning? That's why you kept postponing the wedding. It turns out she never intended to marry you. When she no longer needs this cooperation partner, canceling the engagement is of course just ending a business deal, and there's no need to even feel guilty. Lu Nuyen said, "At that time, I agreed to get engaged to you just because of reluctance." The sincere feelings that Kai Ba Truong offered her were just a compromise. Perhaps because Kai Ba Truong's face was too pale, Lu Nuyen frowned slightly surprised and asked, "Kai Ba Truong, why are you looking at me like that?" "You don't love me. I don't love you either. Being together will only make us both more miserable," she said. Kai Ba Truong smiled. With every sentence Lu Nuyen said, the smile on his face became deeper. By the time she finished speaking, he was laughing extremely cheerfully. He said, "But Lu Nuyen, what if I tell you now that I am not indifferent to you?" He once told me that he didn't want Lu Nuyen to reluctantly be with him because of gratitude. He wants her to truly love him. He said, waiting for the day she likes him, he will tell her that from our meeting 12 years ago, "I have loved you since that moment. I have been waiting for 12 years, finally waiting for the day you love me." He asked me, "Kai Ba Dad, is it romantic if I say that? We will get married. We will have 2 children. We will grow old together, until I am too old to walk anymore. We will hug our nephews and nieces, and tell them the love story of their grandparents." But Lu Nuyen never loved him. He could only express his feelings earlier than planned. But after listening, Lu Nuyen just frowned awkwardly, unexpectedly. "Ba Truong, I had long forgotten what happened 12 years ago." Kai Ba Truong looked at her. The smile on his lips gradually disappeared. Lu Nuyen hesitated and then continued, "Furthermore, I have investigated you. Kai Ba Truong, since you were just a dozen years old, you were able to push your brothers to the border, cause your stepmother to have a miscarriage, get divorced, and find a woman to seduce your biological father." She glanced mockingly and said, "Young Master Kai, your tricks are not lacking. The business is full of betrayal and deceit. You must be used to it, right?" But the next second, crap. She stopped, because I couldn't hold it in anymore. A slap right across her face. Perhaps I have never seen Kai Ba Truong like this before. She turned her head to look at me, her eyes filled with surprise. I shook my hand coldly, looked straight into her eyes, and slowly said word by word, "Lu Nuyen, you are so despicable. Ba Truong has hundreds of plans, thousands of tricks, but he has never used them on you. Yet from beginning to end, you have only planned to take advantage of him. He is really blind to like someone like you." Having finished speaking, I turned around and left. Maybe my words made her confused, so she just stood there looking at me, but I didn't care. Ba Truong is still quietly inside my body. I asked him, "Is it very painful?" His only sincere heart was mercilessly trampled on. I asked, "If you had never met Lu Nuyen when you were 16 years old, would you have liked her?" He was silent for a moment, then replied, "No. But since he's met, what can he do? It's not too early or too late." She appeared at the right time. The silhouette of Lu Nuyen in Kai Ba Truong's memory is covered with a layer of vague but beautiful light. He stubbornly wanted to have her, like he wanted to grasp the unattainable dream of his youth. I sighed and asked him, "Can you stop liking her? You're too soft on her, and it affects me. I want to help you get revenge, and I have to worry about your mood." He was tired and replied in a confused voice, "Kai Ba Dad, I don't know which way to go anymore." He was confused, and only Lu Nuyen could make him so disoriented. I didn't want to see him like this, so I could only calmly comfort him. "It's okay, Ba Truong. I will go with you. I will always be by your side. I will not betray you. I will not calculate you. You can always trust me. No matter the wind or rain, I will always be here. I will never leave you alone again." But I didn't expect that the wound Lu Nuyen left him was deeper than I thought. The day Kai Ba Truong disappeared from my body was also the day Lu Nuyen planned to try on wedding dresses. Even though he knew she didn't intend to marry him, he still held on to a fragile glimmer of hope and persevered. That wedding dress was personally made by famous Japanese designer Kui Donmai, studded with 1,000 pearls and a precious platinum diamond, worth up to $8.5 million. That day, when he and Lu Nuyen came to order tailoring, he still clearly remembers the well-trained store employee, smiling properly and praising, "Miss Lu, Mr. Kai really loves you. This luxurious wedding dress is very rare. But now, he can't even appear anymore. As soon as he entered the store, the employee's face immediately turned pale. She cautiously said, Mr. Kai, Miss Lu just called, saying she won't come today to try. And also, don't worry, there's still time anyway. My daughter just needs a little coaxing and she'll be fine. Kai Ba Truong didn't answer. I think he probably knew that no one would wear this wedding dress, not because it didn't fit, nor because it wasn't expensive enough, but because from the beginning, that woman never intended to wear it for him. From the moment the wedding dress was brought out of the store, he stood on the sidewalk and was hit by a taxi that ran a red light. Actually, it's not serious. The doctor said it was just a light scratch. The police said, if there's a small collision like this, both sides can resolve it themselves. The taxi driver blushed and said to me, Sir, looking at you dressed like this, I'm sure you won't be short of money. I have old parents and young children. Please don't make things difficult for me. No one considered this accident a big deal. Only I knew that Kai Ba Truong had disappeared from this body. Before disappearing, he stared at the taxi. I heard him call my name. He said, Kai Ba Dad, I'm so tired. It must be very tiring. Since he was a child, he was forced to fight and fight for many years, fighting until the end, until he realized it was all for nothing. He's tired and wants to rest. I took over control of my body and softly told him, before you close your eyes, it's okay, Ba Truong. If you're tired, just go to sleep. When you wake up, everything will be okay, I promise. When I opened my eyes, I heard the conversation between Lu Nu Yin and the doctor. The doctor said, we have done a comprehensive examination. Mr. Kai only has minor injuries. Other than that, there is nothing serious. Lu Nu Yin asked, so why isn't he awake yet? The doctor replied, maybe you're excited. Wait a little longer and you'll wake up. Lu Nu Yin nodded. Thank you, doctor. She bowed her head to thank the doctor and then turned around, just in time to see me open my eyes. The smile on her face disappeared little by little, until her face became cold and expressionless. After a while, she said in a cold voice, Kai Ba Truong, the place where you had the accident was downtown. That car was going less than 15 kilometers per hour. It didn't even touch you. Stop pretending. I didn't answer. Maybe she thought Ba Truong was acting to hold her back. She looked annoyed. Kai Ba Truong, what do you want to do? At this moment, I raised my head to look at her. Her eyes were cold, indifferent, emotionless. I tilted my head, smiled sarcastically, and slowly asked back, what do I want to do? Lu Nu Yin, when you were secretly with Wai Dang Tan, Ba Truong was still your fiancé, right? No matter how much you hate him, how shameless and despicable you think he is, you can't deny that he has never betrayed you, right? At the age of 23, when she returned to the country to take over Lu Ti, everyone wanted to oppress her, wanting to bite Lu Ti to pieces without leaving a single crumb. It was Ba Truong who gave her the last straw to save her life, right? Over the past few years, the Lu family and the Kai family have cooperated, and you have also earned a lot of benefits, right? During all these years, has Ba Truong ever felt sorry for her? I paused for a moment, then smiled and asked word by word. Even if you don't like him, when he is still your fiancé, should you at least respect him a little? I know you were forced that year, having to get engaged to Ba Truong. From your standpoint, I respect your courage to pursue true love, but at least you should wait until Ba Truong agrees to cancel the engagement with you before finding love, right? My way of addressing her probably made it difficult for her to understand. She frowned and stared at me with searching eyes. Finally, she said in a cold voice, I told you, I'm willing to pay the price for my mistake. I laughed coldly, but Lu Nu Yin, if it wasn't for Ba Truong's help that year, the entire Lu family would have become the Kai family's property by now. What are you basing on to discuss terms with me? I lifted the blanket and got out of bed. As I passed by her, I lowered my head to look at her cold but beautiful face. Her eyes followed me, her eyelashes trembling slightly. His deep eyes flashed with confusion and confusion. The moment we passed each other, she suddenly grabbed my sleeve. She asked, You are not Kai Ba Truong. Who are you? I smiled coldly at her and slowly replied, Miss Lu, didn't you already investigate me? Why didn't you find out that I was in a mental hospital for a while? Ba Truong is dead. Lu Nu Yin, the person standing in front of you right now, is me, another Kai Ba Truong. Don't you hate him very much? Congratulations, from now on, he will never appear in your world again. She was stunned. I don't bother to pay attention. I called the driver to pick me up. When he returned to the villa, Kai Ba Truong's father was having a meal. Next to him, Kai Ba Truong's beautiful, harmless adopted sister was serving me. Looking straight into his eyes, I said, Dad, I want to cancel my marriage with Lu Nu Yen. It's not that I want to, it's that I have to. My father's face was forcefully pushed aside, but I wasn't surprised. A faint fishy taste filled the mouth. A ringing sound rang out in the ears. Kai Ba Truong's adopted sister cried out, hugged her father's arm, and acted coyly. If you have something to say, talk. Why do you hit someone? Kai Ba Truong's father's voice was extremely calm. It's me who wants to marry him. Now that the Lu family has stabilized, I won't laugh anymore. Kai Ba Truong, there's nothing that easy in this world. I said, she doesn't like Kai Ba Truong. I wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth. Dislike. Bo Kai Ba Truong laughed, not paying attention to my writing style, just smiled contemptuously. That year, you insisted on entering into a business relationship with him. Didn't he also dislike you at that time? I smiled. If I had a mirror, my smile right now would probably be no different from Kai Ba Truong's. My voice was gentle, but now I don't like her anymore. I called Lu Nu Yen, got straight to the point, coldly asked, if you want to annul the marriage, that's fine. My condition is 49% of the shares of Lu T Group. The other end of the line was silent for a moment, then replied coldly, no way. Of course I know Lu Nu Yen will not agree. She is not a lover. 49% of the shares can cause the entire corporation to change hands in the blink of an eye. I anticipated her reaction, so I smiled softly. It's okay, then exchange 49% of the shares at the highest price in the past half year and pay me, or don't give the shares, but make up for it in cash. That number is extremely large, but I know she can handle it. Just need to pay her. Can cut off relations with me. She will definitely agree. The day the contract was signed, there were many witnesses. The lawyers on both sides carefully reviewed each clause, but I just sat by the window, watching the birds fly back and forth. When it came to the signature confirmation step, Lu Nu Yen looked at me and asked, now we no longer owe each other anything? She didn't mention Kai Ba Truong, didn't ask if he came back or not, didn't ask why he disappeared. She only cares if she's completely free of me. I took a sip of tea. Kai Ba Truong has never drank this. He likes alcohol, likes coffee, only doesn't like tea. Lu Nu Yen's eyes stopped on the cup of tea in my hand. I smiled faintly. That's right. Before leaving, I called her back. She turned her head to look at me suspiciously. I smiled, just like Kai Ba Truong did before. Lu Nu Yen, Kai Ba Truong doesn't love you anymore. He loved you for a long time, but I feel the need to tell you. Now he doesn't love you anymore. Lu Nu Yen didn't say anything, just looked at me with deep eyes for a moment, then turned and left. That was the last time I saw her. After receiving the money, I quickly coordinated to organize a press conference to announce the annulment of my marriage with Lu Nu Yen. Facing the camera, I smiled, but that smile was somewhat forced, carrying a fake toughness. I said, we broke up peacefully. The two families will still cooperate in some areas. Don't worry about the Lu family stocks fluctuating because of that, but it's okay. As long as time passes and people forget about this, the stock price will increase again. Lu Nu Yen and I are not celebrities, but in our world, this is enough to become sensational news. Around that time, every time we drank tea, everyone talked about the real reason why we broke off our marriage. I just smiled and said nothing until someone accidentally posted an article. Please share the couples you think are the most compatible. Then someone happened to mention the name Wai Dang Tan. Photo taken by Lu Nu Yen. I don't know why that post suddenly became hot. Someone commented, isn't Lu Nu Yen Mr. Kai's fiancé? Attached is an old interview about Kai Ba Truong and Lu Nu Yen. Article title, Fairy Love Between the Wealthy. In the photo, Kai Ba Truong hugs Lu Nu Yen affectionately, his head slightly tilted towards her. Someone responded, I heard that the two of them have annulled their marriage. But there were also people who didn't believe it, asking doubtful questions. It's impossible. Based on the season in the photo, could it be that Wai Dang Tan is the third person? Look, I told Lu Nu Yen, finding true love is not wrong, but at least you have to wait until after the marriage is annulled. Rumors have never lacked pervasive power. That post was shared everywhere, from what to dub. Finally, it was steered to another topic, a compilation of the most successful extramarital affairs. Even people who are not close to me carefully sent a link to comfort me. Ba Chuang, don't be sad. I'm very sad. Looking at Lu Jia's shares plummeting so uncontrollably, I burst out laughing and shed tears. Wai Dangtan is probably no better. I went to the editorial office and stood from afar looking at him. Deep sunken eye sockets, emaciated face. The surrounding colleagues looked at him with contempt. It is said that his superiors sought him out to talk, hinting that he should resign himself. Anyway, he seriously damaged the image of the editorial office. I sat in the car, smiled, and said to Kai Ba Chuang, still sleeping soundly in this body, Ba Chuang, are you happy? No one answered. 3 days later, I received a phone call from Lu Nuyen. She said dissatisfiedly, Kai Ba Chuang, why did you go back on your word? I slowly took a sip of tea and nonchalantly replied, in the marketplace, we only talk about business. Miss Lu, you have enough tricks of deception and betrayal in this world. You should get used to it, right? She choked up. I laughed. Before hanging up the phone, I suddenly remembered something, smiled very gently. My tone was calm. Ah, that's right. Miss Lu, I haven't congratulated you and Mr. Wai Dangtan yet. I'm sorry, but there's something Ba Chuang doesn't want to tell you. But I'm not him, you understand. I'm always willing to help people, so this is a friendly reminder. If I were you, before falling in love with Wai Dangtan, I would find someone to investigate. His background, such as his father who is in prison for driving drunk and causing a fatal accident 3 years ago. Do you know who he was? The other end of the line was silent, only the sound of rapid breathing. I burst into laughter. Tell me, if the Lord under the yellow stream knew that his daughter loved the son of the driver who stabbed her to death, would he rise from his grave to look for you? That year, when Ba Chuang and I got that photo, we had someone investigate Wai Dangtan carefully. I remember smiling and saying to Ba Chuang, this is good. You don't need to take action. Just let Lu Nuyen know who his father is. They will automatically break up. But Ba Chuang held the photo in his hand, blankly looked at it, muttering, if Lu Nuyen knew about this, she would definitely be very heartbroken. Look again, what time is it now? In Lu Nuyen's eyes, he is a vile person who disregards the tricks of the Kai family. She once said, Kai Ba Chuang, you are so despicable. In the marketplace you only talk about business. You have all the tricks of deception and betrayal. You should be used to this world, right? She treated him like that, but he still stupidly asked me. If Lu Nuyen knew about this, she would definitely be very hurt. Is this the same Kai Ba Chuang that she thinks is a despicable villain? But it's okay, I'm not Kai Ba Chuang. He's afraid she'll be heartbroken, but I'm not. The more she suffered, the happier I felt. I kept this secret just to wait until they thought the clouds had cleared. The light had finally come to true love, defeating a despicable villain like me. At that moment, I will gently give them a fatal blow. Finally go, Lu Nuyen, Ba Chuang, and I will forever bless you. But before that, everything you took from Ba Chuang, I will take back intact, without missing a single bit. As much as you make him suffer, I will make you suffer as much. It's so refreshing. A year later, Kai Ba Chuang's father had a stroke. I took over his entire estate. He sat in a wheelchair, his mouth was crooked, his nose was crooked, he couldn't speak, his whole body was motionless. I squatted in front of him, held his wrinkled old hand, and sighed. How did you become like this? He couldn't answer. He just kept that twisted expression, looking at me, his mouth mumbling unintelligibly. That night, I looked in the mirror. No matter how much I laugh, I can't see Kai Ba Chuang's figure anymore. The person in the mirror has cold eyes and an emotionless expression. I looked at it and softly called out, Ba Chuang, like he used to call me. I told him that his father had had a stroke and had been admitted to a nursing home. Finally, I said, I have prepared the path for you. You will no longer be tired. So why haven't you returned yet? The person in the mirror didn't respond, just stared at me coldly. Ba Chuang woke up on a warm spring day with flowers blooming. I said softly, Ba Chuang, wake up. If you miss this beautiful spring, you'll have to wait another year. The space is so quiet that you can hear the wind gently passing by. I said again, okay, it's okay to be heartbroken, depressed, or hopeless because of love. But there must also be a deadline, right? It's impolite to sleep forever like that. The breeze blew by. I waited for a long time. There was still a quiet space. No one answered. I laughed to myself and bowed my head to look at the pile of documents piled high in front of me. As soon as I opened the first volume, I heard a soft laugh. Spring is so beautiful. Why are you staring at that pile of painful data? Kai ba dad? I don't want to see it. I've kept you. Slowly, very slowly, I smiled. I said, then let's not watch anymore. Let's go to Hangzhou, Guilin, Lam Chi, Weilo. If you're bored, we'll go abroad. The world is so big. The scenery is so beautiful. We will see it all together, step by step. He smiled. That smile was the same as the first day I met him, like spring water flowing through clear, free, pure pebbles. He said, okay. A long time ago, Ba Chuang asked me, what exactly are you? Do you really exist? I said, I don't know either. He asked again, am I a hallucination? Am I just a product of mental illness? Are those things important? It's not important, Ba Chuang once said. You are my refuge, the only light in the darkest of days. Life is very harsh, but I always believe that pain and antidote always exist in parallel. Just grit your teeth and endure. You will find the cure hidden in suffering. In this world, the only thing you can rely on is yourself. So, you must love yourself and absolutely never give up. Like Tam Mao's saying, how can a person's heart have 40,000 zhang, thousands of miles further, between which there is no Chu Tu who can guide the way, except for self-help? Others cannot help more.